A quick reminder that if you want to be in for a chance to win this extremely rare Nintendo Game Boy Light, make sure you check out the details in the description below to enter the giveaway on Instagram. We've got another restoration video to analyse today. This one is called Restoration Old PlayStation Game Boy Destroyed, Retro Console Game Boy Restore and Repair, which is not a sentence, that is just an accumulation of words. 2.1 million views, 10 months old. So the video starts off with, you know, a guy with a stick just sort of waving it around Indiana Jones style through the bushes, and he comes across a pile of sacks and bags and sort of rubbish, which is obviously really sad to see, but it's quite a common occurrence in third world countries and poorer parts of the world, just rubbish on the side of the road. But what obviously some people are able to do is have a rummage around and find really cool, rare items which seem to be going really viral on YouTube at the moment. But we're still going. We're going to keep rummaging around through this bag. We're going to lift up a, what's that? Little bag of something. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, what else have we got here? I can't see. Oh, you know what? I can spot a little something. Oh, go on, just whack it around a bit more. Look at that. That is really a restoration of an old PlayStation Game Boy. That is a PlayStation Game Boy. You know that that's that thing that Microsoft made. So here it is. It's a really nice, rare PlayStation Game Boy, and we're gonna have a little look at it here. So we've got what looks to be a serious amount of damage. We've got a smashed screen. It's interesting what's happened with that screen because it almost looks like layers have been sort of prized up. We've got a lot of dirt really sort of stuck to it there. Not quite as rusty as some that we're used to seeing. We're going to get some nice panning shots. Lots of sort of damage. Oh wow, look at that on the back. We've got an opening. There's an opening there, a proper wound to the plastic. A lot of dirt. I mean, it's really interesting though how much dirt has sort of stuck to it, and it almost looks like it's been painted on there with a brush. So yeah, that really is interesting. But we're going to start off then by dismantling the PlayStation Game Boy. You can see the SD card slot at the top there, which was a common thing in Game Boys of the time. So we have a bunch of stuff. We've got some speakers. Oh my days. Do not use tweezers to lift up a battery, especially not the sharpest tweezers I've ever seen in my life. If that punctures, you're looking at some damage, some serious damage there. It will spray out acid on you, so don't be doing that. We're going to lift up the speakers there. Oh, one's sort of connected slightly. Might as well just yank that off. That'll do the solder pad a great deal of good. I mean, yeah, looking at how moist this is clearly sat in a very muddy sort of puddle, or potentially sunk into the bottom of a lake or something like that. Oh, okay, we've got a little small preview of the underside of the board there. But it is going to go off to the side, and we can see we've got the rubber membranes here. They look pretty new though, don't they? For a device of this sort of age and wear. A PlayStation Game Boy is quite an old console from around the late 1990s. So okay, so there's the screen. Now there's lots of dangerous glass shards and fragments on here that you wouldn't want to be touching with your fingers at all. It's really important to avoid pointless picking apart of glass. It also is going to absolutely project glass fragments all over the table that you're working on, so it's really crucial that you don't just randomly pull apart screens. But as you can see, this person here, the expert, has actually done that, so that's not good. Okay, so this is all looking like fairly reasonable stuff here. We've disassembled a very dirty Game Boy. There's a great deal of mud there, which is going to pick that off. Right, now the really important part here is what he's going to be doing to check if the battery is still working. So you can see here, this battery is not having any of it. Yeah, let's just reverse those, that's safe. Yeah, there we go. Not having any of it. Throw that in the bin. Okay, so let's put a bunch of stuff now in some soapy water. Presumably not the electronics. The electronics you wouldn't want to be putting in soapy water, really. It's not advisable. You probably want to be putting them in some isopropyl alcohol. So we've got a toothbrush here. We're going to give everything a nice scrub off. I'm interested to see how he's going to patch up that massive hole there, that sort of bullet wound. I mean, this is a really nice aesthetic thing to look at. Some nice muddy water, and it's nice to see the dirty things becoming clean, which is partially why these videos have so many views. It's because everybody enjoys seeing something be cleaned up from the absolute pit of grot. Now this could be some isopropyl alcohol. It could be. I doubt it, but it could be. I mean, that is sort of what you would use with isopropyl alcohol, that sort of little brush there. But looking at the way that it's sat on the table, I wouldn't say that's isopropyl alcohol. Isopropyl alcohol evaporates extremely quickly, which is why people use it on electronic components, because it's able to pick up the dirt and then sort of evaporate very, very quickly, and it will actually dissolve a lot of dirt as well. So now we've got a hairdryer, which we're going to be using to dry off all of the pieces, which is a technique that people use when they're in a bit more of a rush. Typically what you'd probably want to do is just leave it out on a windowsill for a day, and then that'll dry it, especially if you've got any degree of sun. That's going to do a great deal of good with drying. Plastic and heat is not the best combination, and on these delicate old consoles, you ought to be a bit more careful. Nice little transition there. It almost looks like the Dremel that he is now using to fix this is what was used to cause it. You can see there's some yellow plastic, there's sort of fragments of plastic all over the tip of that Dremel. Looking at the sort of the shapes of the holes that seem to appear in that crevice there that's opened up, looks almost like the round shape of the Dremel tip. Also, just looking at the tip of the Dremel bit, half of it is sort of yellow, isn't it? It's almost as if this has been done to it by the person now fixing it. Also, this sort of plastic build-up that you've got around the hole looks to be kind of like melted plastic, which would definitely be caused by a Dremel bit if it was used incorrectly. So it's just really interesting, isn't it? I just cannot work out what else could have caused that. I mean, it just looks like the most abnormal looking hole I've ever seen. You know, maybe we're going to see some really miraculous repair here, which is, you know, what we have to remember is that at the end of the day, we're still being provided with entertainment. Whether this is fake or whether this is real, it's still entertaining. What I really like about these videos is seeing how a professional goes about fixing something. So what we're going to see is this person here, who I imagine is someone who has a lot of experience with this sort of stuff, now patching a hole, which is going to be really interesting, I imagine. And, you know, fixing plastic and then making it look seamless is quite difficult. So we've got something here that's going to be going inside there. What is that? That's sort of, I'm not actually sure. And then we've got some potentially some glue. So he's filled that hole with something, and he's sort of holding up something like a patch behind it so that he can essentially build up the material there with some glue, which is really clever. And then presumably he'll sand that down and then paint it with a bit of primer and then a bit of body filler or something. There's a few more. It almost looks like noodles, doesn't it? It does look a little bit like dried noodles. So go on then, sprinkle those in there. Now this is potentially a good way to build up that material again, and then you can, with a bit of sanding, use some body filler and really smoothen the whole thing out with a bit of sandpaper there, like he's doing. So chances are that is going to be completely seamless when he's done with it. So shove a few more crumbs in there, might as well. Now the body filler, I imagine, is next. Let's see. No. Oh, God. Hang on. Sorry, that's not it finished, is it? Is it? That's not it finished, surely. And also, hang on. Right, a few questions to be raised here. So what we're looking at now is the view of all of the parts. So we've got what looks to be a brand new battery. We've got, with a bit of what looks like adhesive, which is possibly come from it being removed from another device. So that adhesive is a little bit suspicious. We've also got a brand new screen lens, which is really, really interesting. I wonder where he's got that from. And also, I'm beginning to think that there's a small chance that this isn't a Nintendo PlayStation. There is a small chance. And my thought process for that is that it never existed. Sony never made a Game Boy PlayStation. Microsoft certainly didn't either, and Nintendo didn't either. So what I actually think is going on here is this is a aftermarket sort of console that you could have bought from AliExpress or Amazon or eBay, and I think that's a fairly educated guess to have there. So I don't think this is actually that old, because these things are fairly new. They've been around maybe now for about 4 years maximum. So we've got a motherboard here. Now the interesting thing about this motherboard is you can see these two little pads that are stuck down here. Now those pads have a paper-backed adhesive on them. Now for the amount of time that this is spent underwater for it to look like it did, I'm surprised to see just how crisp those pieces of paper look. We've also got a brand new screen up there as well, and a brand new speaker. So it is really quite interesting. So he's going to get his multimeter out again and just probe a couple of little bits. Just for the sake of it, you know, you might as well just test an LED. Why not? Why not just test an LED? It's going really well. Really well. Oh, that one works. Oh, that one doesn't work. So now he's going to reattach the speaker that he almost certainly yanked off from what is almost certainly a completely different motherboard to the one that was found in the side of the road, because that motherboard right there has not seen any dirt or water or mud. There's absolutely no way. That silkscreen can stain, which we don't see any of right here. You'd expect to see a hell of a lot of rust, which you absolutely don't see at all. I mean, it's pretty clear to me what has happened, which is that we've got a completely different console now. Completely different console. I would say there was probably two to begin with. There was definitely two to begin with. One was destroyed by hand. This is just my educated guess. One was destroyed by hand and then planted in the pile of sacks. And then another one was just dismantled. Ooh, all those fingerprints on the underside of that screen. Surely he's going to wipe those off though, so that'll be fine. But yeah, it's pretty clear, I think, what's going on here. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But it is ever so slightly misleading, to say the least. So we're going to push the side bezel back on. Sorry I'm skipping through this right now, but this is just a great deal of nothing again. Right, so the brand new screen that now has 1 million fingerprints on it is going to be plugged back in. So where did the screen come from, is my question. Yeah, where did the screen come from? So that's going to get sat back in there. And we're going to put the brackets back on. There's that battery with that little bit of adhesive there, which is really interesting as to why a brand new battery would just have a used bit of adhesive stuck onto it. So set the motherboard back in. The screws are next. Those screws are not rusty in the slightest bit as well, which is really interesting, because these cheap Chinese consoles wouldn't be using very high quality screws, and they would have almost certainly rusted beyond imagination. Okay, so we've got now the whole device back together. And there's a bunch of fingerprints on the screen, but don't worry, they're all going to be removed once he peels off the protector. There we go. Oh my days. Are you meaning to tell me that he didn't give the underside of the lens a little wipe? Because there was a lot of handling of that screen going on. The attention to detail of this repair is not that high, is it? It's really not. So we're going to put these screws back in. It's very low effort if I was to sort of give my 2 cents. So there we have it, the X60, which is the famous PlayStation Game Boy there with mini USB charging, which we definitely saw in the Game Boys. So there we have it. Absolutely brilliant. So, wow. So there we have it, and then we are recommended 4 more absolutely legitimate ones, even one which includes some leaves, which is really nice. So there we go. That right there is the restoration of the PlayStation Game Boy. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I am very confused. Unless I'm missing something, I would say that whole thing smelt slightly fishy.